And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Well, another Wednesday. The year is flying by, and folks, I always take the holidays off, so I have this show and a show next week, and then I'm going to be off air until the next year, so just a couple more shows, but, there's so much that's happening here in the area, and I'm focusing my show definitely more on local issues and politics, because the truth of the matter is that's really what I think affects us the most is our local decisions, and it's also the thing that we possibly with our voices can change and hopefully have some impact. So we're going to focus on a lot more issues in the coming year. One of them is the Innovation Hub that is talked about a lot in Stuart. It's over by the fairgrounds in Port Salerno area. Lots of things are going on over there. I don't understand the whole Innovation Hub, so while I have my time off, I'm going to be getting up to speed on it, and we'll do some shows. And always, if you have some issues, reach out to me, because I want your voice to be heard, no matter what the issue is, what side you're on, or what side I'm on. It's important that your voice is out there, and today is one of those shows. Today I have Robert and Olga Hamilton here in the studio. They have been trying to get their voices heard for months and weeks now through the city of Stuart. They own the 1895 Church of Stuart. It's a historical building here. They were improving that property through a community development block grant program, and let's just say things went sideways through the whole process. And we're going to talk to Robert and Olga, get a really good idea on the background of the story and the issues that they have ran up against right here in the city of Stuart. So the other part of this is I had a second show that we're going to table until the new year. So Robert and Olga are going to be here for the whole hour. So welcome, Robert and Olga.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Casey, for having us.
It is absolutely my pleasure. We're going to spend a lot of time there. And real quick, before we get into your issue with the Community Development Block Grant Program and the City of Stuart and a couple other players, yesterday, of course, everybody knows the city or the county had a meeting on Brightline. The City of Stuart said, no, if Brightline, if you're not going to pay your share, we're not going to pick up the entire tab. Fortunately, you had 3 commissioners that are fiscally responsible. However, the county was insistent. They went and put out a bid for the very same property in the city of Stuart because the county owns it. And of course, Brightline was the only one that could fulfill that bid. They did. They offered to pay it $1 a month for that property. Yesterday, with a 5-0 vote, the county commission decided to move forward with that bid and with the lease to Brightline. We'll see what the lease looks like when it gets rolled out with the county, but Brightline wanted it for up to 120 years, which is absolutely incredible for $1 a month. And a lot of people were there, folks. Very proud and happy that people were speaking out. We're talking about transparency in government, government accountability. A lot of people were there in black and blue, just trying to ensure that we have a government that works for the people. There was people that spoke about a cell tower issue. A lot of us there were about Brightline, and there were some other issues as well. So I appreciate you speaking out. I know you probably feel like your voice wasn't heard for the most part, but it's only one issue. You have to really stay on the ball and really keep up on all issues all the time. So while that vote did happen, we're disappointed. Next week I'm going to do a further in-depth show with Michael Circus, who spoke about transparency issues, lack of public notice with this entire Brightline issue, and we'll go into that next week. So for this week, again, Robert and Olga, I'm really glad to have you in the studio. I had the chance to go out and visit their property last week, and we'll talk about the condition of the repairs. It was astounding to me to see the shoddy workmanship that I saw, and I appreciate you showing me that. But honestly, folks, you can see through. They had windows replaced. It's crooked. You can see right through. There's air holes. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So, Olga, I'm going to start with you. Tell us about where you are today and how you got here.
First, I will a little bit about the CDBG program itself. And it is a small cities community development block grant housing rehabilitation program. It's the most easiest program to apply for, and to manage and administer this program. And that's why the city of Stuart specifically applied for this program, because it did not require too much work, only adequate management and administration of the program.
Sounds easy. Adequate
Yes.
management and administration.
It goes way back, and you always follow the trails of the papers.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
With the city, it's all on the website. And plus, in March, it was 9th, 2020, Robert and I, we were giving the art moments presentation, and we were talking about our historical building. And right after that, I even printed these resolutions I brought, where the city decided to apply for the CDBG program grant. In 2022, Governor DeSantis announced allocation of here, right from his website, it was in 2022, more than 35 million to 48 Florida communities for community development. These specific programs, CDBG programs, and including housing rehabilitation program, they help communities a lot. For example, housing rehabilitation program, it's designed for people with low and moderate income. It keeps people in their houses. It's rehabilitated houses, renovate. People can sell these houses, so it's moving on the market. And plus, this program also generates money for the city. It's not like they are giving this is like money grant. We sign it mortgage with the city,
Okay.
where the city is a lender and we are borrowers of that mortgage. And mortgage is forgiving during the years by increments as long as you live. After 15 years, the mortgage is forgiven totally. So, for example, if Mrs. Smith, she rehabilitated her house and she wants to put that house on the market right away, and if she has that mortgage of $57,000-$80,000, she has to pay all this money back to the city.
Not free money anymore. She has to pay it back.
To the city.
Okay, to the city.
From her sale.
Okay.
And the city can actually use this money again for rehabilitating another house of the applicants.
So it kind of stays in that grant program.
Yes, you can use this. This is by law.
Okay. Okay.
That's what the city preferred this method and used, and we signed all the documents. So, also, it's a competitive grant. The cities, they compete with each other to receive this grant. That's why 48 eligible communities. It's actually a privilege for the city to be eligible to be awarded this money. So the federal agency, HUD, distributes the money to the states around United States. So our Florida applied for this money, and that's how Governor DeSantis received this 35 million that he could allocate to other cities.
This is really a big deal, because just in case you missed it, only 48 communities in the state of Florida, not counties, communities, received this grant, and Stuart was one of these communities.
Yes, among different like town of Astalula, 700,000, town of Brantford, 600,000, and among all these towns and cities, that's why it calls the small cities community development.
Okay.
And
Helps them
here's
smaller.
the city of Stuart that was awarded by Governor Ron DeSantis 750,000, and now here we are sitting. How they actually did thank governor for allocating this
Right.
money when our historical building got completely butchered. Our complaints weren't addressed in timely manner when everything was. They tried actually to cover it and sweep under the carpet instead of responding. And as I mentioned it earlier, it's a very easy program to manage. We don't have hundreds applicants. We have only 11 applicants, including us, and 2 managers.
Wow.
We have the City of Stuart CDBG Housing Rehabilitation Manager on the behalf of the city. That would be our Executive Director of Community Redevelopment Agency. And the city also hired independent contractor grant management Guardian Community Resource Management Inc. as the say top ranking firm to help them to assist with the grant management. Now, the most important word, to assist.
Right.
What
Assist,
it
not
means,
run it.
help. Not exactly totally to take the control over the program. So the city, even by federal regulations, still responsible for supervising and monitoring this program. And there are specific federal regulations, codes, how to administer and this grant, how to monitor this grant. And also, it's not just independent contractors. The city had to adopt procurement policy where it's all written how the city will choose the contractor.
So as Robert and Olga are going to go through this program, folks, just to recap a little bit here, it's the Community Development Block Grant Program that was offered through the state. The city applied to get this.
Correct.
And we were one of the lucky 46 communities that were allocated some money. Robert and Olga came to me because, of course, this is grant money. It is taxpayer money. And they applied. They were awarded this program. If you stay there for 15 years, it's a mortgage that gets forgiven. If you sell before that 15 years, you pay back appropriately, whatever that time frame is. For Robert and Olga's case, the contractor that was recommended to them, it was one of the city's choices. They had to choose. It absolutely butchered this historical building, as Olga has said. They butchered the work. Robert and Olga want this rectified. And the city, I've watched some of the meetings. Please correct me if I say anything wrong here. But the city wants to pretty much just kind of sweep this under the rug a little bit and say, look, all right, Robert and Olga will go ahead and use the rest of the grant money that hasn't been used yet allocated for your program. We're going to pay the contractor who did a really shoddy job, and we'll talk about what we mean by shoddy. And so they get to keep their money. The contractor, even though they messed this up and you have to start over, and they just say, okay, we'll just use more of the taxpayer money. And Robert and Olga said, no, this is wrong. This contractor was recommended by you through your program to us. They messed up. They literally measured windows wrong. Let's get right to the heart of the matter. They incorrectly measured windows. The windows came in that were too large, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
And then they had to, instead of ordering the right size windows, they decided to cut larger openings in your historical church.
Which knocks the framework out, the lancets, which are the arches and trims. As we restore this building, we're also granted from the state of Florida, if we keep it exactly the way it was, we get a tax deferment for 10 years on the increase in tax. That's your award from the state if you're a private person and you do this. We learned about this through our town historian, Alice Luckhart, who's passed away.
Yes.
Spent a lot of time helping Olga and I, and they deferred us to Tallahassee. So I would get a lot of information from the historical board in Tallahassee. And basically what's gone on here, and your recap was very well on it, is it's not only about the mismanagement, it's the deliberate indifference. When Olga and I brought the actual paperwork and documents to try to resolve the issue, we couldn't even get a sit-down meeting with Mr. Mortel. To this day, we've never had a meeting. And it put us in a position where we're dealing with outside agencies, which Olga can go into, the destructive work. And, you know, when you spend 4.5 years doing restoration work, inch by inch, it's not a remodel, it's not a new build, it's not an addition. You must put it back the way it was. And it was like an onion. There was drywall, and then you peeled that off, and then you peeled off paneling from the 70s. Then there was a layer of paneling from the 50s. And to me, it was exciting. I got solace working in the church alone. And then there it was, the original beadboard from 1895.
Wow. Again, this is a designated historical building.
Yes.
And I have to say as well, because it's designated historical, wouldn't there be specific contractors that specialize in a building this old?
Well, it was in their contract, and it said right at the top, and Olga can show it to you, where it was a historical building they knew they were signing on to. And the city had a remedy. It's in the contract that if the contractor does gross negligence, the city can boot them, not pay them, for not complying with codes and statutes.
But the city wants you to pay them anyway.
Yes, and I don't understand why that nothing was done in a timely fashion when they had the remedy. They had the actual remedy that we wouldn't be on your show. They would have said, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this right, and use that as an example and show the governor and the state, hey, even when there's a problem, our people can take care of it, because they signed on to that. And Olga can go into that a little bit more now.
And it's judicious overview of taxpayer-used money. That's really what you're asking for. It's
Yes.
accountability again, folks. And this seems to be a reoccurring theme lately with the county and the city. So if you've watched the city meetings of late, you will see Olga and Robert both come every time to public comment. And they're asking for help. They're asking and asking for help. I've seen the city manager Mortel say, city's just basically a conduit, and we're not responsible. So it's really tough for you because you have a contract that says otherwise.
Yes. We have a little bit about contractors. So on this program, we were given to choose from only 2 contractors.
2 contractors
choose,
only.
To choose who bidding.
And the city provided it to you.
Yes, it's provided by the City of Stuart CBDG Housing Rehabilitation Program, and here's the review of the bids. But as I mentioned it before, according to all the federal regulations and also to the Florida Administrative Court, the city is still responsible for supervising the program and for the contractors. It's not the management company they hired put the signature on the sub-agreement between Florida Department of Economic Development. That's through the department the grant was administered. And before receiving the grant, they have to sign that agreement specifically with the department, where everything written, all city responsibilities, and plus anyone can go and look at the Florida Administrative Court, specific federal courts on grant administration, Florida, what we have here,
Building
Community Development Block Grant, Part 570 of federal. That's specifically on administering for the state of Florida and departments. What happened when the city mismanaged the program? It's also put burden on the Florida department, the State Department, because they are responsible for the city actions,
Okay.
how it's done. because it will be also the state reporting back to the federal agency how hard.
You want it to be a
how it
successful
was.
grant program.
Yes.
Correct.
But when cover-ups happens, when there no help, when people are actually, we were threatened, and I have it in the letters. We were abandoned, we were threatened if we don't sign on that shoddy work and release that money. We were threatened with liens. Now, imagine these cases, these programs, they design it target people with low income, moderate income. Most of the recipients of participants, not recipients, but participants in this program, who they will be? They will be elders,
That's right.
single mom, people nothing like
Widows.
Widows, yes, veterans, people who have a lack of education. Some people have a problem with skill communication.
Right,
And
right.
this is the easiest population to be abused by contractors. You tell them, if you don't sign on this work, we will lien your house. And people get scared and they will sign on anything.
I want to go into this a little bit more, and Robert, you can delve into this a little bit. The lien that Olga's talking about. This is very serious because you have been threatened with a lien because you're saying this
The
contractor.
lien was filed,
did-
ma'am.
It's already filed, folks. This contractor did very shoddy work. All they want is accountability of this contractor, and if they don't pay the contractor, which they said they haven't released the funds, you guys have to sign off on it, and you haven't. So now there's a lien. Is that what's going
There's a
on?
lien, and then Olga and I contacted the Office of Inspector General for the second time dealing with the process. And they contacted the city. They had a conference, and then they contacted us back and had a conference and explained that the city would be paying this lien off out of their money, not the federal funds. We're waiting for the state of Florida to get back, which the city was also asked previously by the Office of Inspector General to consult with the state of Florida's historical board. They're making a decision now because the way they portrayed that we were complaining about the windows and leaks, no, they cut the frames out to force in larger windows. So now we have financial damage from our taxes. We have physical damages of the property, something that everybody knew when they came in was discussed. I took notes. You have a list they ask you for. We complied with every step of the way. We thought this was a great thing for us.
The roof vent too. We got to mention that
Oh, yes.
as well.
There was a roof ridge vent, and it's in the contract. And in the contract, it says you will put a roof ridge vent back in the structure.
This allows the house to breathe,
Yes,
folks.
ma'am. And I apologize, yes. Because it has gable vents. It's that design back in that time to take air in from the gable and push it out the ridge. So they didn't do it. They covered it up. Olga found it in the attic, crawling around. Couldn't figure out why. It was 97 degrees inside, and it was sweltering. So we notified everybody about it. And they allegedly put it in. They didn't. They sealed it off, is what they did.
Our existing.
Our existing.
We had existing
Okay, hold
roof
on,
ridge
hold on.
vent and the system.
And then what happened is I brought it to the attention of the building department, and they said that wasn't on the list of things to inspect. So they duped the building department. Then they installed hurricane clips, didn't tell the building department they installed hurricane clips, didn't notify the state of Florida that we're going to cut out these window openings to install larger windows, because I'm sure they would have said, no, it has to go back the way it was.
Tough. You measured it wrong. Go order the right windows.
Correct. And they were not going to do that. And again, to me, this whole way is deliberate indifference again and again, because Olga and I kept bringing it to the proper authorities with the proper documentation, so we would hope they would go, oh, my Lord, yeah, we have to deal with this, and here's our remedy, and we can make the Hamiltons happy, and they could actually look like the heroes of the community. But instead, it's about power, it's about abuse, I'm 65 years old. I really love the church. And they put us
Absolutely.
through tremendous stress.
You still are.
And we just have, my day is spent reading codes, statutes, shepherdizing, and for what? Mr. Mortel has power and money from the city to hurt us, just because they couldn't follow the rules.
Regarding Office Inspector General, why we had to file the complaint. In our contract with the contractor, and it specifically states the City of Stuart, CDBG program and contractor of the program, housing rehabilitation, and it states in our contract with the contractor that they have to perform work according to the CDBG of Stuart Housing Rehabilitation Program scope of work. And all these documents here and what they are responsible for. And of course, the contractor was responsible for applications for the building permit.
Okay. Yeah. Applying
So
for the permits.
I am talking right now, and somebody will ask, but she knows like what she's talking about, a program and Florida codes and this and that. We learned it. We learned it hard way.
Yes.
When we applied for this program, we did not know so much about this program, how it runs, who is responsible, about hard guidebooks, how to manage, even about Florida codes. In the contract with Patriot, it states if you have, we have right not to sign for the shoddy work and poor
Right.
performance. It's
Right.
right in the contract. It also states in the contract the city has right to fire the contractor for violation of the local and federal and state of Florida codes, including building
So the
codes.
city has the right to fire the contractor.
Yes,
That's right.
But they
it's
won't.
Why is they
Guardian
refuse?
ultimately hired him. I'd like to loop around to the lien, because the lien was actually fraudulent. They put on the lien that they were on the property in August. That was to extend the time to file a lien. They were never on the property in August, so that's fraud in that document right there, giving it to the court and to the city to use as a weapon to hurt
Against
us
you.
because we spoke up. And Olga can go into another lady. Her name is not important. She came to us 8:30 at night.
It was East Stuart neighborhood.
Can I finish?
Yes. They're very
She has
passionate.
passion.
Folks, they're very passionate.
And I felt bad for this woman because she was telling us her problems. And to make it easier and shorter for our viewers, she said certain things only the people like us would have known, that these contractors, how they talked to them and how they were threatening to them. And you know immediately she's telling the truth.
Because you've been through it.
And what amazes me is how during this whole process we offered again and again and again the codes, the rules, the regulations, and we just still can't get by why the city would never sit down and say, let's resolve this. Why the deliberate indifference when it's in black and white?
That's the big question here, folks, is, Robert and Olga, they're just trying to make sure that the grant money that is out there is spent how it was intended to be spent. They see that it's not. They've had shoddy work. You're going to have repercussions beyond this grant program with your tax deferment and a historical building if this is not all corrected properly, which it still isn't. You're going to the city, and it just doesn't make sense why somebody didn't put a stop on this and said, wait a minute, this Patriot group, what's going on with this work? It's the permits, there's issues. There was also an issue, I know, with notarization signature that didn't happen.
Olga can go into that.
If you want to talk about that there's a lot of things here, folks, that Robert and Olga are trying to bring to the public, and that's why they're here on this show. Again, we're talking about transparency and accountability, and this particular one's with the City of Stuart. And for some reason, the City of Stuart has not stood behind Robert and Olga. They just kind of want to sweep it under the rug and make it go away.
That was very frustrating, Kissy. So we did everything, we complied with everything. We were told before, you cannot talk to workers. If you have questions, you have to talk to supervisors. If you have complaint, you have to address it to the city of Stuart CBDG program first. And we complied with it. I will tell, since they started to work on our roof in May 2022, the roof leaked after they put the water underlayment on the roof. Polystick. Deck replacement was not done properly. They covered it with the polystick, broken boards.
They
we
covered
had
up a
holes and
damaged deck.
everything. So
you
the
can't see it.
the polystick failed because the underlayment needs a proper surface to
And it
to
wasn't
line
installed
up.
properly.
Yeah.
I went to the manufacturer and I looked at all their training videos because, you know, sometimes we on the outside don't understand how things go on. And I've got construction experience and I'm looking at this, I'm going, that's not installed this way. So I contacted the manufacturer and I talked to them on the phone and they clearly said it's not supposed to have wrinkles in it. It has to lay flat. And Olga's got the photographs, wrinkles all over it. Then they covered up the decking. Then when they said they were going to come and put the metal on, I said, no, you're not. And they said, well, the building department cleared it. I said, I don't care. I said, it's raining inside. Dry in means dried in. So I stopped that. We went to the building department. Nothing was ever written, but they did stop it. So then the representative from Guardian was there when they ripped the peel and stick off the roof and then had to replace decking, that there was holes in the decking they covered up the first time. So when they got done with that one, that very night that they dried it in, fixed the decking, it rained. And it rained in again. So I called the roofer. The guy came right out. He got up on the roof and he had punctured it. And he was worried about not being paid. And I said, I'll let them know you fixed it. And then you wait for the metal. And then the metal, we know what happened. The metal was put on. They didn't put the ridge vent system into it. There's a bunch of shoddy stuff on it, the way they bent the metal and did things. It adds up, Casey, again and again and again.
So back to the complaints and how we came to file the complaint with the Office Inspector General. We complained on the contractor. Since May, June, July, all its recorded messages, phone messages. Finally, in July 16, somewhere it's here. I sent the email with the photographs to the City of Stuart CDBG Program Management, 2 of them, to our Community Redevelopment Agency and to Guardian Community Resource Management, that company city hired. And no answers. I was absolutely ignored. Nothing. It was so frustrating. Then I started to look up through and documents and everything. It's unbelievable. Nobody answers. Then I sent again. In July 16, what's really startled me, when we asked Antonio Jenkins from Guardian Community Resource Management, who will assign it to our project.
Okay.
By the city.
By Guardian Community Resource Management, and he's supposed to supervise the work by contractors. He also supposed to with inspections, building department inspections, and documents on permits, is if everything according to the scope of work. And we sent him message.
And this is very important why Olga's looking for that, because we're questioning things. It's like, you know, you can't cut into this building. You got to notify the state, ask permission from them, the homeowner,
Right.
and the last is the city. I think we're the third oldest structure in our area.
Wow. Okay.
The jewel of our area, one of the jewels, I should say.
Right.
And I think you see where I'm going with this, Casey. It was unnecessary. All of this was unnecessary. Go ahead, Olga.
So on July 16, that was the windows, by the way, were installed and reinstalled. The first time they proceeded to install the negligently ordered oversized windows on May on June July.
It's okay. It's okay.
It is okay. I
July,
can't imagine
July
what you guys
5th,
are going
yes,
through.
it's a lot of dates. From July 5th to July 7th. And that's where all the shoddy work was
Happened.
done.
That's what she
And
was-
It was not just frames taken out. Our exterior load-bearing walls were altered. The structural components were taken out. They took out this, cut out studs, jack studs.
4 inches of
It-
stucco
it
off the
was-
original building.
It was terrifying. The contractor came. They left the workers who has no idea what to do. 2 workers even could not put the sticky waterproof liner, to protect. They were struggling with that. And when contractor, after they finished, came, even the contractor, general contractor himself, their superintendent, he got scared. He got
Yeah,
scared. They canceled, it was scheduled building department inspection. They had to cancel the inspection, and they taped windows with the plastic because cuts and holes in the walls, it was unbelievable.
So part of what I want to go back to what Olga was saying here a second. These text messages were going back and forth, and we have them. And the direct question is asked, do you have permission from the building department, plans? And he writes back, yes. So Olga and I go to the building department, and we ask for the file. And they give it to you. It's not a problem. We go through the file. There's nothing in there. There's no plans for that.
Wow.
So they didn't notify them. And they also changed the floor plan of our building by adding an extra, I think, 600 square foot room that doesn't exist. That would also affect our taxes in the future, because then we'd be assessed on that.
Right. That's right. Where did this 600 square feet come from?
So after the inspection, we right away notified again our building department and our management that there were no structural plans submitted, that contractor concealed the installation of the oversized replacement windows that required alteration of our load-bearing walls. And we also notified that the contractor submitted the wrong floor plan. And what does it mean? And every contractor, by the way, our local contractors who came, we also invited, we called our local representatives of our windows, impact hurricane windows.
Eastern manufacturer.
Eastern architectural windows. He came, he looked at, guys, that was unnecessary.
It was
By you floor plans, existing floor plans, you don't need additional means of egress, and that's why they submitted that wrong floor plan. Because we don't know actually when
Yeah.
they ordered the windows even, but they altered the path of egress.
And all of this
And
because
this
they
is
did
very
not measure
important.
correctly.
That's what I don't understand. They didn't measure correctly. You messed up. Keep your oversized windows. I'm sorry if you can't return them. That's not your fault. That's not Robert and Olga's fault.
It's not the state of Florida's fault
It's not
saying you got to keep
anybody's.
the building in compliance with historical standard.
And that's the shame of this. Folks, again, this is a historical building, 1895.
Yes, ma'am.
And to see something like this altered so drastically and unnecessarily, it's heart wrenching, I'm sure. And Robert and Olga, you can tell their heart is in this building, and it has been for a long time. And what a gift they thought this grant was, and it's turned into an absolute nightmare. But let's go back again, because this is through the city of Stuart, and I just want folks to kind of understand. The City of Stuart was awarded the Community Development Block Grant Program. The City of Stuart, if I say anything wrong, let me know. The City of Stuart then hired somebody to supervise and manage the program. That's called Guardian CRM
Correct.
Incorporated. And they gave you two contractors to choose from. One is the one you chose, which was Patriot Response Group, and another contractor.
And here's how we chose that. When they give you those two names, what do most people do? You look them up.
Right.
We looked up the two contractors. One contractor was listed in Port St. Lucie, and we couldn't find anything. It was like a house address. I don't know what was going on there. So then I said, well, let's look at this Patriot. And that beautiful website comes up. They handle FEMA money. They brag about restoration and, just putting your life back in order. And I said, well, this is good, Olga, because here we got a company that's used to doing it. We have Guardian watching them. And we have the City of Stuart's building department to make sure everybody does it right. And we spoke to everybody. It wasn't like we said, have at it. I explained to everybody the research we were doing, what the goal was, and it was basic construction, KC. This is not complicated. This is basic.
What did you need done? Windows repaired and a new roof? Is that
That was
originally what it was for?
Yes, ma'am.
That was
It does
And
sound
doors
simple.
and insulation
doors.
was
It
part of
was
the grant.
3 doors, exterior doors, windows, our roof, and attic insulation. So that was on our CDBG scope of work, and it's all here in the documents, including that in red for the contractors, that it states that our building, this project is listed as a state certified home of historic significance. The scope of work and all rehabilitation shall be in accordance with required state historic mandates relating to the materials and aesthetics.
Which you'd
Now
expect.
that's simple, is
right.
it not?
It seems very
that
simple.
you were told that you're signing on to this. Now, when we talk to a lot of different contractors, they all go, Robert, we could never come in and do this kind of work for that kind of money. But what I did find out, I had gotten a bid before, and it was $4,000 more on the roof. I wish I knew, and I didn't know then, if you read the contract and the fine print,
There's a lot of fine print.
you can hire your own and never have to deal with the contractors they offer you. Now, wouldn't it have been nice when we were first told that you can hire, if you have a good contractor, and they're going to cost more, your local guys, but our guys can, or however their spiel is, you have the choice. We were never told of the choice, and that's a difficult thing, because part of that burden's on us. Well, you didn't read the contract. They're massive.
No, but that's a transparency thing as well, because you had a program manager who was walking you through the documents and told you and gave these two in front of you, and they at that point would have been a good time to say, if you don't want to use these two, you're more than welcome to use your own as well, but we recommend these two. That's
Thank
a
you.
conversation
Yes.
that should have happened. Instead, you're under the impression, and folks, Olga has a binder here, a 3-ring binder, and it's probably about
Every
3 or
document.
4 inches of documents from all of this. So there's a lot of fine, small print here. This is the accountability thing, and I want you guys to tell me, because we're running out of time, where the City of Stuart stands today. You have not met with the city manager over this, but you go to every city meeting. You've been to the CRA meetings. To give your 3 minutes, both of you take 3 minutes. What is the city saying to you besides let's pay it off and move on?
Recently, I'll give part of my update. Recently, Olga and I are at the church, and there's a knock on the door, and it's the head of the building department. Very nice gentleman. He wanted to talk to Olga and I and said, listen, when the work gets geared back up, I'm going to be noting the violations that went on here. That made us feel a little better. He said he had a meeting that morning with the city attorney,
Okay.
and that's why he was there. We're thankful for that. Again, we never should have had to get this far. And Olga?
So after being ignored by the city, I decided to write a complaint. Here's very important, Casey. When we sign a document, even for application, if you read at this document what it says on the top.
Resident income certificate, way up top, Florida Housing Finance Corporation.
Florida Housing. That's the Office of Inspector General I contacted
Okay.
first. And they responded me back that we are not with their program. And I'm like, I have documents signed. And OIG office from Housing Florida writes me back, this form is proprietary form, ship form, and never should be used
For the SHIP program, not for this grant program.
No, and they recommended me to the Florida Commerce.
Okay.
Florida Commerce, their department of the. That's how I wrote. They responded to our complaint. They called to us. They talk to us, and right now our case is evaluated by the State of Florida Historic Preservation Office. What steps next?
Because the city was asked to. The city asked to go to the Tallahassee to let them look it over and make a decision to put the windows back the way they were or whatever it is.
It's very unfortunate it took this time. You see,
Well, it took a lot of persistence from the
Yes.
both of you.
The problem
Yes, ma'am.
is this is very easy program to manage. Uncover it a bigger program or a bigger problem we face right now. How it's happened that the city manager, who is also a Florida bar member listed as a government attorney, can stand at the public meetings and disseminate false information when he, as back then in 2020 and 2021, as a the city attorney, he put his signature on these documents, including the procurement policy and resolutions. And here we have the city manager standing and saying that city is not responsible for program, even supervising. This is a false information. It's a deceiving information for people. How you now can take any words coming out of the city's manager mouth without any grain of salt? You cannot trust anymore.
So we continue to wait for the state, thankful for the Office of Inspector General instructing them to do that, thankful for the Office of Inspector General for contacting them saying you get this lien removed. And I want to add one little last thing. When we do get stuff back, it'll say FYI or hi. We never get a Mr. or Mrs. Hamilton from them most of the time. It's a hi, FYI. It's a little thing.
Right.
But it just adds on to the rest of this, the disrespect.
And the lien are supposed to be paid by city with non-federal funds. It means this money does not come from our fund, our grant. So where this money comes?
So that's the question they're asking the city right now, and they don't have an answer. They have a lien on their house because they haven't paid the contractor for the shoddy work. They said no, they shouldn't be paid. And Olga's just saying that the city is responsible for paying that lien off, but they're not saying where the money's coming from because it shouldn't be coming out of that grant program. So where is it coming from? And folks, you know where it's going to come from. We can answer that, right? It's going to come out of your pockets, out of some other pot. And I want to clarify something as well, just so you understand. Olga was mentioning about the city attorney 2 years ago, and now the city manager. That's one and the same person. Mike Martell was the city attorney. The city manager left, and now Mike Martell is the city manager. So he's very familiar with this project from day one as the city attorney and now as the city manager. And from what I understand, you're saying he's just putting his hands up and saying this really isn't the city's problem. They're putting it on the Patriot, or not the Patriot Response Group, the contractor, but on the Guardian CRM Inc., who are the managers. But again, this all came through the city. The city hired
Yes, ma'am.
the Guardian CRM Group to manage this program. Olga, you showed me a document that had one of the subsections in it that specifically stated the city is in control of this project.
Right here.
She has it under the contractor default. and where the contractor services have been terminated by the city, so they can terminate it. And they do talk about that. This is a very long paragraph, but she has this. If you'd share this with me, just this contractor default. There's a lot here to read, and I just wanted to get to it. But the authority of a city development official, agent, or employer otherwise violates any provisions of the contract, the city may, without prejudice to any other right or remedy, and after giving the contractor its surety 7 days written notice, terminate the services of the contractor and take possession of the project. It's right here in their contracts. So the city ultimately does have a say in this. They are in control.
Yes. The question is why they did not. That's the question.
It is the question. Why not?
Why they cover it for Patriot Response Group and not standing for us?
And you're reaching out to the commissioners too. Some of them are trying to help you out. They've come out to see your project,
We'll see.
and you'll see if it does or not. You're hoping.
I'm hoping. I have faith in him.
I mean, this has been going on for a few months now.
Yes, since May
So-
or June, whenever we started writing, when the work was done.
In July, I wrote an official email with all the photographs about the damages. July 19.
And
that would be right after.
They shared the photographs with me, folks. There's a lot of damages there. The covering up of the ridge vent in the roof, that's a really big deal. That can create mold and other issues in your house because it's there for a reason. Like I said, it lets the house breathe. So I just feel for you folks because it's such a nightmare. Your heart is in this building. It's a wonderful historic building right here, just a block from the radio station, as a matter of fact. And to have such a nightmare happen, and you realize it's not even happening to just you, but other folks who, fortunate for you, you're strong. Olga, you get out there, you let them understand exactly what you're thinking, and you give it to them. So I commend you for that, because if you don't speak up, these things just do get swept under the rug.
They're good programs, but mismanagement does not help.
No, and that's what we're focusing on today. We need the transparency. We don't need mismanagement. We're asking the city to please step up, do your job. It's right here, section 21.4 under contractor default. The city, Mr. Martell, you're an attorney as well as the city manager. It looks clear to me, unless there's something else here somewhere else, that the city ultimately has control of this project. So leaving it on the shoulders of your residents.
And the last thing I'll say, last
your help.
night, the Mayor Rich, said the CDBG program will be no more. We're never going to deal with this again. So throw the baby out with the bathwater.
So because they decided not to manage it properly, and you've brought it to light, the the remedy is just to get rid of it.
They don't want oversight.
And that's a shame for you folks. This is a grant program to help you, and the city of Stuart is one of the few fortunate places, just 46 municipalities in the entire state to get this grant, and now they're just going to get rid of it because they didn't manage it properly.
If it happens on the program that less 1 million, what's going on the program 5 million and more? That's the question the
Olga, you're right about
residents
that.
have to think.
Let it wrap.
Yes, Olga. I was going to say Olga's 100% right about that. She's going to get me going because this is about government transparency,
Right.
grant programs. There's a lot of issues with them. When you see a problem with one, you bet it's happening in other areas, and we need folks like you to speak up and let the general public know about it. This is how things get better. Thank you, Robert and Olga Hamilton. You're with the Historic Church here in Stuart. Appreciate you coming in today.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
you for
very
getting in
much.
touch.
Thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure, and I hope this gets worked out as it should, and your church is restored as best as it can be.
Keep a spot for us.
I definitely will. We'll see you next week. We're going to talk about Brightline with Michael Circus. He ran for county commission, and he was there talking at the meeting yesterday. We'll see you Wednesday.